welcome to Point of View. Today with me live from the Comfort Gardens here in Nairobi is Amanda Mukwashi, Chief Volunteer, Knowledge and Innovation Sector. Welcome to the show.
Thank you very much.
Now, we're discussing and highlighting the UNV report that was launched yesterday at the UN here in Gigiri. This is the 2015 report. And Amanda was the team leader of the people, the wonderful brains and people who came up with this report. And I want you to maybe share with us some of the highlights of the volunteerism that was discussed in the report launch. I think it's a fairly new concept for Kenyans generally, and maybe the first step would be to further explain to us what is volunteerism.
Thank you very much. Volunteerism actually is something that is not very new, especially to African societies, but more globally, universally. You find that it is the concept where we've always known that you help out, not just your people in the neighborhood, but in your communities. You have widows who are plowing if you go to the village. You find that it has been common culture to help them to harvest or to plant. And but over the years we have found that because of societal changes, either they move from our local communities to towns, to cities, and then eventually to the diaspora, this concept has been lost slowly. But now it's back on the increase. So volunteering is now moving from just service delivery, helping in health or helping in education, to advocacy, to being active, being an active citizen, encouraging other people to have voice, to express themselves, to be heard, especially on issues that impact people's lives and livelihoods.
Yeah. From the discussion that was there yesterday, one thing stood out for me is that volunteerism is really positively impacting governance. How so?
It's impacting governance because of this shift. The more we've become aware of the need for us to participate in governance. And maybe let me break it down a little bit. In village communities or committees, for example, where decisions are made, normally you would find that, let's say, women who were excluded would not voice out their sentiments, what they were feeling, what they were experiencing in terms of exclusion. Now we have village communities in quite a number of different countries, especially across the continent, that now bring in young people, they bring in women, and create a space for them to actually have a say in decision making.
That's wonderful.
Yes, but we're not there yet, I have to say. I think more has to be done, because sometimes even when spaces are created, let's say on a local council committee, and women are invited and young people, they do not have the confidence or the skills to actually articulate their issues, then that space is not being properly utilized. So we still have to support this volunteer engagement. It is just a pathway. It's not an end on its own. It needs to be complemented by other social structures or legal frameworks that actually allow for that freedom of expression.
All right. Now, you mentioned women, and recently here in Kenya, we've been having a discussion, a debate on our constitutional two-third Kenyan bill, where a third of parliament should. And how exactly maybe can volunteerism impact such decisions in a country?
That's a really good question. I think that what we've seen in the report, because this report is focusing on transforming governance, is that when volunteers, when women in particular, take the first step to volunteer, what it does is it actually builds their skills. It gives them the confidence to be able to articulate the issues. And evidence shows that those that volunteer even on a small space then go on, have the confidence to go and perhaps become more engaged in activism and more engaged in the politics of their own communities and their own countries. And so to answer your question more directly, volunteering is a pathway for people to gain the skills and the information, the right to information that they need for them to be able to actually be, for example, go on to parliament. That personal building of confidence and increasing awareness and being able to understand what is happening and getting the necessary information, that is really critical for any engagement and participation. And it's also very important in understanding accountability. And we found that there's a strong connection between between volunteering as a pathway.
All right. So what has been the reception from the people on the ground?
The two things. I think there's the reception in terms of the report itself,
Yes.
which has just been launched. And then I also want to say something about the reception in terms of volunteerism itself.
Yeah.
In terms of the report has just been launched. It was launched in New York 2 weeks ago. And so far, we have really received some incredible feedback and interest. Surprisingly, because volunteering is usually seen as something that is a soft topic, subject where you just help out because you want to do some charitable work. But this discussion in this report is pushing the conversation into how volunteers enhance voice and participation, how they strengthen accountability, and how they draw out responsiveness from governments and other governance actors. So far, I think it's a bit too early to say exactly how it has impacted the public, but definitely we're receiving some really positive feedback. My second element, though, if you allow me, is the perception of volunteerism itself. And we were in a workshop with the National Red Cross about 3 days ago. And young people seem to be embracing volunteerism much, much more. If you look at how they're using technology, if you look at how Kenyans have used technology, for example, to contribute their knowledge across the internet, using SMS or using internet access where internet access is available, you can see that they're influencing governance. But there's much that we need to do to change the perception that volunteering is just something that you do to help out the old lady. That actually volunteerism is something that can build your skills as an individual and can contribute to social inclusion, which when you look at the MDGs is one of the things that has come out as the missing element, that leave no one behind, right? And volunteerism is a way in which people can actually be part of the process.
Leaving no one behind. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
What about the governments, especially in our continent, Africa? Have they been receptive towards the whole concept and volunteerism in essence?
I think what the report has found in terms of evidence is when you go to countries like Togo, like Mozambique, governments have actually put in place legislation or policies that enable volunteering to happen. So, and some of them have gone further and come up with structures, especially for youth volunteering. Now, I don't want it to sound like volunteering is only for young people, because we see examples of men and women, for example, when they're trying to deal with the issue of alcohol abuse or environmental protection, we find that a lot of people, a lot of elderly people are actually involved in this. But specifically, we have seen governments across the continent put in place structures, national volunteering services, national volunteer policies. Here in Kenya, only yesterday, the Deputy President was talking about the national volunteer policy that the government is looking to adopt and implement. So quite a bit has been done, but we need to do more. We need to do more to ensure that people are not excluded. Good governance requires the engagement and participation, not just as passive actors, but as active citizens or participants of development processes, ensuring that, you know, I as an individual, as Amanda, can engage. I can say, this is where I think development should go. These are the decisions that impact on me. This is how they impact on me. And these are the solutions that I bring to the table. And this is, in the report, we are saying that volunteering is actually a homegrown solution. It is not a solution that is manufactured somewhere else and then brought, for example, to Africa. It is something that comes from our Harambe or our Ubuntu, you know. And so, exactly. So how can we build on something that we already know? How do we build that so that it can be one of the solutions? It's not the only solution, and it's not the only thing that is going to address the challenges. But it is definitely something that we know and we have known for generations, and something that we can innovatively change and adapt to meet the current challenges of our time. I want also to say something about, in order for that to happen, of course, things like literacy. If you take, for example, use of mobile phones, and we're saying volunteers can use mobile phones to express their situations. But if you don't know how to read, if you don't know how to read, then you can't do that. Yeah. So the volunteering complements the efforts of governments and other governance actors, but it does not replace the responsibility of these institutions.
It's complementary.
It's complementary indeed.
Okay, wonderful. Ladies and gentlemen, we're taking a short break to keep it point of view.